I think my bench is sagging from the weight of this boat anchor. What we have on the bench today is a Stihl MS880. This is Stihl's largest chainsaw. Let me get one thing out of the way real quick. I have never, ever had somebody buy or run an 880 or a 3120, which is Husqvarna's equivalent to a 120 cc saw. I think the 3120 is like 118 cc's. This is 122 cc's. To put things in perspective, I think with no gas and oil in this, it's 23 pounds just for the power head. And if you've ever run one of these, you'll know that they are, when you fill up gas and oil and then pick it up again, it is significantly heavier than when it was empty. This holds 1/3 of a gallon of gasoline and 24 ounces of bar oil. So that's 1.5 pints, I think. It's a lot. So let's say, you know, full of gas and oil, it's tipping 30 pounds. And then, you know, of course, you're not going to have a little puny bar on here. This has got a 42-inch bar, 41-inch bar, however you want to call it. They're unimpressive saws, but let's get into what the 880 can do versus a 661. There's just your size reference. That's most of a 661 that's in for some work. It just doesn't give it justice. You know, when you look up over the top of these things, you know, I mean, it's so much wider, it's so much bigger, it's so much heavier. So you get about 8.5 horsepower, 8.6 horsepower is what the factory rates the 880 at. And you're at like 7.2, 7.3 or something like that for a 661. But obviously with another, you know, 30 cc's of displacement, there's gobs of torque. So again, there's nothing impressive about running this. It just sits there in the cut is blah, 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 and it'll just keep chugging until the cows come home. This has an oiling system that will oil up to a 5-foot bar, where on your 661, you're going to be hard pressed to keep the chain well lubricated on a 36. Now, in that same 36-inch to 36-inch range, the 661 is going to cut faster. It runs more revs than this pig does. You start throwing a 4-foot or 5-foot bar on something like this, and you're going to see that your 661 is not going to be able to keep up unless it's been modified. But just stock for stock is what we're arguing here. Let's tear into this a little bit. These aren't for everybody. They're a little bit different. Everything on this saw is built for this saw. It's not like you can just go grab a bar nut from your 661 or 660 or whatever and put it on here. Even the bar studs are larger. This takes a larger mount bar than all the other pro saws in the lineup. Everything is specific to this saw. There are very few parts that weren't just made for this saw and this saw alone. And they're all expensive. They're all very expensive. When you get into these, if you ever think, oh, I really want one of these, you know, make sure you buy one that's running complete, because if you have to start replacing parts because it's missing stuff or it's a part saw not working, everything for this is incredibly expensive compared to other models. Okay, just notice bar studs are jumbo, the slot's much larger, and this actually has, oh, this one doesn't. Some of the other older bars that have this mount have 2 tensioning holes just because the possibility of having chain stretch on something this ridiculous. So there's your 880 clutch cover. There's your 660 clutch cover. Everything's just ridiculous. So there's still 19 millimeter, but you'll notice that the hole in the threads are much larger than a traditional bar nut. All right, we're just gonna I'm doing a quick once over. A little bit of coating on the piston, looks a little dry. Maybe we can get up to a little bit more oil ratio. But you'll see why this is so restricted. There's your spark screen arrestor, and then a channel that goes over to your little teeny tiny exhaust port. We're gonna throw a bark box on here, and that way we can get some flow straight out of the front of this, which would definitely give us some more giddy up. because that's what we're going for. This is going to be machined, ported, timing advance, and we're going to turn this into something. I do need to touch up. Look at this. That's just ridiculous. I do need to touch up the chain before we run it. It's not in bad shape, but you know, it's just a quick touch up. You can see how that point's kind of knocked off a little bit. So we'll try and give this thing the best outcome it possibly can. I'm not a big fan of the steel long bars. Their normal size bars are good. It is very easy, especially with all the weight of this power head, to tweak one of these bars. It's hard for me to show you looking down, but there's a little bit of wiggle in this, especially down towards the end. So, you know, this is the best straight edge I have that I can show you, but, you know, I don't know if I get any light from underneath here. No, not really. But it will, it does have, whereas down here, there's nothing. So, just in full disclosure, I didn't tweak your bar. Wait, you thought I was gonna hand file this? No. Okay, just finished up the first side. So you can see I'm back on my original tooth. You'll have to reset yourself up because once you change this angle, you're hitting a different area on the wheel. So your height and depth and all that needs to be readjusted if you want both sides to be equal. First adjustment you want to make, that's what this knob's for, is to move this from one side to the other. On a newer chain, it doesn't matter as much, but you do want to be contacting with this foot squarely on the back side of the tooth. So move this over for the right-hand side teeth. Okay, I needed both hands there just to make sure that that's pushed down and flush with this rail and that the vise is there. And see, I don't know if you can, you know, so we're gonna have to back this up a little bit because, you know, I'm gonna take too much off the tooth if I don't move this back. So this is where your fine tuning and consistency comes from. The machine's only as good as a man using it. Okay, I got my depth set up and I'm gonna have to go in just a hair more to clean up the little bit of damage that's on this side of the tooth. Focus, focus. You see how that is bent down just a little bit? So we gotta get back to clean metal right there. Excuse my dirty ass thumbnail. I have not done this one. This one's done and you can still see. So that's why I'm going in just a touch. I'll go back and catch this one. But let me back out so it's not so small. So, you know, you grind this tooth right here and then you undo your vise and then you move forward and pull back. And if you lock your vise in right now, you're missing something here. Watch this. If you push down and seat that and then come over with your thumb and lock, that way you get consistent results. Every time you come back to this pawl stop right here, the tooth is going to be cocked one way or another. And it just varies from chain to chain, how good it catches, how good the mating surface is on your keeper right there. And that's why it's important. When you get down to like the last third of a tooth, the grinding wheel will make contact on one side or the other where you're doing. So you want to either be out of the way, one way or the other, to stay away from your grinding wheel so you don't damage this. If you go back and look at your own grinding, you'll see there's some damage. But, you know, as long as you use this adjustment, you'll stay out of harm's way. Last thing I'll say about when you're using your grinder, see how clean my wheel is? There's no dirt and debris in the abrasive. I degreased this chain before I ever started, but you know, you're gonna pick up, you know, just anything. So you dress that wheel more often and you'll get better cutting results without burning your tooth. One more pro tip while you're grinding. So bump into it and work your way down. But you'll notice as you work your way down, there's deflection in the wheel or this chassis. So even though I've already ground off the top plate, I'm making content there. And it's, see? And that's why using the stop feature here on the top of the unit is good, because that way you have consistent hook in all your teeth. Well, there's exactly 30 minutes of my life I didn't get back. I'm done. Get the bar back on, just giving everything else a quick once over. Spark plug's tight. Air filter needs to be cleaned, so I figured I'd clean it just to give this saw a fair shake. And either this wasn't screwed on tight. I don't see anything wrong with the sealing gasket. I think that just rattled loose at some point in time, but we got a little bit of dirt, debris in here. I'll get that cleaned up, and then we'll load up in the truck and head to the woodlot. See if we can't go find some metal in a tree stump with this freshly ground full comp chain. All clean and shiny. Same thing with this. You can blow this out with air, but occasionally you need to wash these. You can actually blow through the filter media and feel that it's restricted. So a little light degreaser and then blow it out. This is all nylon woven mesh, and it needs to be washed occasionally. Just watch out for how good your rubber seal is, so that way you keep all the icky stuff out. Okay, when it left the factory, this was at the medium setting for minimum maximum. I went in and turned the oiler up. Your dealer setup hardly ever gets that right. I mean, you have 42-inch bar. You think you need medium oil? Let's give her a go. Well, it's a running saw. I got her stripped down part of the way, got muffler off. We already looked at the piston, it looked pretty good. Saw's nice and clean. You know, these don't get used that often just because it's such a big, heavy, blunt instrument. But there's your carburetor, and here's for reference, here's an old 394 carburetor. I'm going to just hang this on there so I can back up a little bit. And so there's your venturi for that. There's your venturi for that. Big difference in between a 90cc saw and a 120cc saw. Very intricate linkage on these. Your kill switch is down there, and then you've got multiple rods in the back with some funky routed fuel lines, and then your choke rod right here. And this all works absolutely flawless. My 084, which is several decades older than this, and it's known and reliable and works. They're great puzzle makers. No, this doesn't have two pistons. This is an 046 piston. These are 52 millimeter. Let me hold on to this. I know I wanted to show y'all something. And this is a 60 millimeter piston. So, you know, I'm the oil geek. So everything looks good here. I mean, it's not burning as clean as it could. And obviously this saw is always going to be under like a heavy load because, well, it's not going to run a short bar. You know, a little bit of coking, nothing horrible. But I want you to see the rings. See how the rings are shiny like that? That means it's fully broken in. All right, so on a brand new saw, these same Maul rings are black on the outside. There. So as that gets wiped away, and wears in, whatever coating is on the outside of this is what helps conform it to the bore. Bodie had a video out last week and he was showing his rings. You know, is this really broken in yet? You know, that's truly broken in. I've seen this in like a steel workshop manual. So when you see shiny rings on a steel factory saw, you know it's broken in. Saw's in fantastic shape. So kudos to the owner. Cylinder couldn't be any nicer. No issues, no uglies. I don't know what he's running for oil. A little bit down there, and everything seems to have a decent amount of sheen to it. So I don't know if this is something better at 50-to-1 or he's mixing 40-to-1. Okay, that's enough for one day. You've seen the ins and outs and how an 880 runs in like new condition. I'll have a part 2 out here next week that'll show performance work, and we'll have a test cut video, same bar, same chain, yada yada yada. So hopefully you can see now why these don't get used that often. They're so big, they're so heavy and bulky. You know, maybe you use it once a year for that big job, but they're pretty unimpressive. So hopefully we can get enough performance in, and I've done a handful of these over the years. This should run more like it's supposed to, or one you would think a $2,000 chainsaw powerhead should run like. Anyway, that's enough for today. I will see you on the next one. The cicadas are a wee bit loud this evening. I think we're going to have a bumper crowd of them, bumper crop of them. But I can actually hear them inside. They're pretty loud.